arrived early this morning into this auditorium, I felt like I'm in Africa. It was so warm, so welcoming. And then as the formalities started, the aircon manager also arrived. Ever since then, she took us straight from Africa to the South Pole, straight into Antarctica. So ladies and gentlemen, if I have a brain freeze on this stage, it has absolutely nothing to do with my preparation. You know who to blame. I'm going to be speaking to you about a little that goes a long way. Now, that was going to be the topic and title that I was going to be exploring today. But I decided to change it at the last moment. I decided to change it for a very specific and clear reason. A little that goes a long way connects with the heart. It's very simple, it's very clear, it's crisp. But what I saw and found was that it does not allow me to showcase the value of all those exorbitant fees my mother paid for me to go to university. So I renamed the title of my talk, and I called it Negligible Inputs Gargantuan Impact. Negligible inputs, gargantuan impact. For the grammar police as well as the pronunciation police, I use negligible and negligible interchangeably. It captures the same message, but as the Generation Zers would tell you, it slaps differently. And that is why I changed it. Now, it's a simple message that I have for you today. The idea that small, little things, negligible inputs that we can put in can result in huge, enormous, gargantuan impact. It sounds like a story, an idea that is so far-fetched. And so you're probably sitting there and asking me, how dare do you claim that something meager, something small, can have such a profound impact? It happens primarily in three main ways. And I'm going to unpack some of those two stories. The three main ways that I see it primarily unfolding are as follows. The first one is what I call the aggregation effect. The aggregation effect is the idea that negligible inputs aggregated across a large collective can collectively and taken together have a gargantuan impact. The second one is what I call the time effect. The time effect is the idea that negligible inputs effected steadily and consistently through time can have a gargantuan impact. The third and the last one is what I call the spark effect. The spark effect is the idea that negligible inputs can be the spark that lights up the fire which causes gargantuan impact. So those are all theoretical, all conceptual. Allow me and join me on a trip down memory lane, my memory lane, where I hopefully will corroborate those ideas using a few stories. I grew up in South Africa. I consider myself a struggle stalwart, one of those liberation warriors. Now I can see some of you are looking at me judgmentally. Look, I was there with the legends of our democracy, our liberation, as they were fighting against the apartheid regime. I'm told that I shouldn't pronounce it that we romanticize apartheid. So against the apartheid regime. Okay? And don't judge me. You see, I was born 2 years before democracy. In those 2 years, I can't remember much, but I probably took up arms. I was probably in exile to fight against apartheid. It needed to be done. Okay? Now, I say that, but the main point I want to bring home is that with the struggle, we got to an opportunity where we could overhaul what was an oppressive, a repressive, and depressive apartheid regime. But do you know what it took to overhaul that government and that administration? It took one vote. One vote from a South African citizen. But the difference is, it was aggregated across and upon millions and millions of South Africans. And that resulted in gargantuan impact. I grew up in a place called Deloitte. You know, tucked away, far away from the global cities or global standard cities of South Africa, the likes of Johannesburg and Cape Town. I grew up in the northern parts of South Africa. It's a township, Deloitte is, and calling it a township is actually misleading because it's not a town, and there are no ships there, except for hardships. I did write a few of those. But I can assure you, it was difficult environments. And the reason we were in townships is because we were not rich enough to be in the suburbs and the urban areas, but also we were not poor enough to be in the rural villages. And I grew up in that environment, and the story that I'm going to tell you emanates from there. So I found myself in a space where, growing up in Liverpool, I had challenges. We had financial limitations in my family. And I realized that I went to school in my primary schooling years, the first 7 years of my schooling, I struggled with the English language. I couldn't speak English. I couldn't express myself in English. But when I looked around, I saw my classmates speaking English through their nose. And I wondered, how do they do it? I realized there were things and factors in my space that did not help and were not conducive towards me learning and picking up the English language. And one of those was that we did not have a functional television with a satellite dish. I had to hold the area behind the TV to get some signal. It was hard, but it delayed my progress. Now, what I decided in that space was that I will endeavor to give myself every chance to learn English. I went into debate competitions. I'll come out last, it didn't matter. It was efforts that I expended regularly, continuously, and through time. With the idea that through time and the time effect, I'll get better in communicating and expressing myself in English, and that's why I'm on this stage today. The second story that I'll tell you personally is now going to speak to the spark effect. Sparking and lighting up a fire. I went to a school, a high school, or secondary school, after I left primary, where my primary school teachers warned us that don't you dare go to the high school, because it was notorious. The learners were always outside the classrooms. There's always fights and there's police vans rushing to the school. But because of the financial limitations in my family, I found myself standing in front of that school gate and realizing that the lights of my future seemed to have been dimmed. It seemed that my hope of a bright future was gone. But you see, in that same school, in the corridors of that same school, I met a gentleman by the name of Chief. Now, Chief comes to me. He was 3 grades ahead of me. And he says, oh man, I see that you are recognized in the school assembly for participating in Next Olympics. Since you're doing well, you should look up a Chief. You should look up this career called actuarial science. I was like, Chief, sorry man, I have a heart and I want to be a doctor. I'm not driven by money, so I will not take you up on that offer. But he was persistent. And then it came to a point where Chief realized he's not getting it too. He said to me, you know, Katlego, actuaries are the guys who drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis. I was like, okay, no, you need to tell me a bit more here. Look, don't judge me, I still have a heart, okay? There's nothing wrong with wanting to drive a Ferrari. And that's how I started investigating actuarial science. Today, I'm an actuary. A journey that was sparked as a fire, as a spark that Chief started in my life. In a school where 50% of us pass matric. A school leaving grades in South Africa. In a school where 12% of our school qualifies to go to university. In a school where I had to obtain 6 of the school's 8 distinctions so I can get admitted to study actuarial science. That was the spark that led to the graduate impact. So let me bring it home. What am I saying? What is this having to do with you where you are? And as far as Africa is concerned, we are in a space where, and I'm going to shine a spotlight on the idea of collective impact, the aggregation effect, that together, investing our efforts, expending our efforts in the same direction, we can together have gargantuan impact. Africa is plagued with a variety of challenges, problems, issues, including financial inclusion. Excuse the pun. Maybe I should have said financial exclusion. When you look at the the trust deficit that exists around our financial institutions and systems is work that you and I, sitting in this auditorium, need to do. When we look at the levels of financial illiteracy, there's work that you and I need to do. And collectively, we have the opportunity in the spaces that we are in, with the minute, small, meager, negligible contributions that you have to make, that collectively they can have a profound, gargantuan impact. And so the call from me to you is, number one, share the information you have. Give someone exposure. For me, that was chief. That's all he gave me. He gave me some exposure. What do you know that can be profound as far as altering the trajectory of someone's life is concerned? Share the information. Secondly, share what might be to you negligible resources. You see, the high-rise fences that we live in have blinded us from the reality that there are people outside of our fences that can benefit from what we deem to be negligible. 10 years ago, I went back to my former high school. And when I got there, I was speaking to learners who were 1 year before their school leaving year, so they were in grade 11. As I'm speaking to them, I said to them, I want to send you application forms, and I want to send you forms and links to apply for bursaries. So to give you, all of you, please write down your email addresses. Their reply to me was, what is an email address? South Africa. This is 2013, 2012. I went back, took my laptop, and started registering one by one, each of them, to get an email address. To this day, when they change their passwords, some of them I get the notification. Because I have to do that recovery account. But it reminds me of the powerful impact that something that was negligible to me. So, if after this discussion, this mathematical issue that I'll raise, you understand it fully, I urge you to go back to your alma mater and go and do a top-up payment because they gave you high-quality education. If you don't understand it, still go back to your alma mater and ask for some change. So this is an idea about the time effect, and I'm going to combine it with the aggregation effect, and then we'll close. There's an idea around compound interest. So let's give an example. If you have $10 that you put into a bank account that earns 10% a year, and you place it in the bank account for 100 years, the $10 will earn you $1 every year for 100 years. Do you agree? So at the end of the 100 years, you'll still have the original $10, but you also have those $1, summed up $100 at the end, so that's $110. Are you still with me? Yeah. But the problem though is that in your bank account you won't have $110. In your bank account, you'll have $138,000. Why? It's because not only is the $10 growing, but also the interest that it has earned, those individual $1 are themselves growing. So the growth from the rest of all of those interest amounts buried far exceeds the contribution coming from the original $10 because of time. That is the time effect. It looks small, it's just $10, but it can grow to that level. Think about it this way. In South Africa, we have over 60 million people living in our country. Now, you can wait 100 years to get to $138,000 in your bank account. But if you ask for $10 from 13,800 South Africans, you immediately get to $108,000. Immediately. So something going to take you 100 years. You can accelerate it by leveraging the power of the collective. Because as small as the contributions are from those 13,800 South Africans, collectively, they are gargantuan. They may look negligible as an input, but collectively, they are gargantuan as an impact. So in closing, my charge to you is share the information. My charge to you is, wherever you are, play your role, own your space. And my charge to you is that you need to understand that the small things that are resources to you that are negligible can have a profound impact on somebody else. And I charge all of us to let go of the demand to be the hero. Yes, the world celebrates the #1 person, the fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, the greatest footballer in the world, Leo Messi, sorry, CR7. But we can win together. We can be heroes together. Because negligible